Got it. All right. So I want to welcome everybody to Coordinated Community Response, which is also what our program is from Branch House, CCR. So we want to differentiate between the two different programs so that we can celebrate both of them. And I wanted to, we'll do some networking at the end, but right off the beginning, I wanted let me see if I can get this first. Um, Wanted to welcome to say that Ellen Talton is here for her last meeting. She's retiring. I know for some people that is like they're jealous and want to join her. And Ellen, you want to introduce your new person that we'll hopefully be seeing at our meetings. We thank you for being a regular. It's been awesome. You and Christina held down your end always. When Christina was in her position. So we want to thank you very much. But if you want to go ahead and introduce, I think, Jan, that'd be great.
Yes, I would love to. And again, thank you, Margaret, for all of this. You have spearheaded this effort that has been so worthwhile. And so I appreciate that. And I will miss everybody.
You
But I
can
am
come
happy.
back anytime.
Okay. But yes, I'm happy to say we have a new community development specialist. I've been working with her for just a little over a week. Her name is Jan Stout, and I'll just let her say hi.
Hello, everyone. It's very nice to meet you. So I'm looking forward to working with you.
So it's great to have you, and we'll hopefully have a little bit of time at the end and get you to talk a little bit more about what you see in your position that you're going to be doing. So anyway, with that, I wanted to introduce Kristen Hall with Branch House, and Branch House is very exciting. This is a Tennessee program, and I just was asking her about programs, similar programs in Virginia. So if anybody here knows that Virginia, we really try to get both Tennessee and Virginia when we can, or parallel them at different meetings if we need to. Branch House, I remember when it first started, and it's been a great asset to me. It also is a little bit like the Children's Advocacy Center, where you have all your services in one location and you can better serve people. So, Kristen, we look forward to hearing a little bit from you, and we want to welcome you and thank you for being here. So, and Eric, thank you for letting us know. Okay, Kristen.
Thanks. I'm certainly glad to be here today. I can go ahead and start sharing my presentation if that works, and we'll talk a little bit about Branch House and our program. If y'all have any questions, please feel free to ask as I go along. Have this more of a conversation than just me sitting here talking. Um, but we'll start with Branch House. So this is what it looks like for those of you who may not be familiar, who may not have come by here
So,
before.
Kristen, I'm going to stop
Yes,
you
ma'am.
just a second. Can you do the presentation deal so we can see the bigger picture? Uh,
Yes. I'm
Slideshow.
so sorry.
That's okay. Go up to slideshow.
It's cover. Okay, sorry.
And
There we go.
then,
Sorry.
no, yeah, there
Technology.
you go. Perfect. Great. That makes it
Um,
lovely.
So this is what it looks like from the outside. We are located at the back of a subdivision. So when our clients are planning to come here, we tell them, hey, you're going to look like you're in the wrong spot. Go to the end of the neighborhood, and we're down the big hill. It was previously a men's halfway house before it was Branch House. And that's kind of evidenced by the way our offices are set up and things like that. But this is what it looks like if you're ever sending anybody here or coming this way. A little bit about our training objectives. We're going to talk a little bit about what a family justice center is, how it supports victims. We'll talk about the programs that we have and the programs that we have within the community, and then just fostering stronger collaborations between community partners to help best serve our victims. So, before the Family Justice Center, I want you to kind of think about this situation, right? So, there's been years of verbal and physical abuse from a spouse, and you have two children who've witnessed the abuse on several occasions. During a particularly violent incident, your youngest child called 911. Law enforcement response came, arrested your spouse, and told you to consider leaving and getting an order of protection. Um, so prior to family justice centers, there's a lot of services that go into leaving a domestic violence situation, right? So that's housing, that's food, that's phones, that's potentially divorce attorneys, employment resources, jobs. So if you were an individual who didn't have access to reliable transportation, having to go 6 to 10 places would make that really difficult to leave that situation. With a family justice center, we have all of those services in one centralized location. So at Branch House specifically, we have our on-site partners, which are Advocacy with Abuse Alternatives, Frontier Health Safe House, and then Legal Aid of East Tennessee, which are able to provide services like court advocacy, counseling, paralegal services, so civil services for an order of protection, divorces, custody, things like that. And then we have offsite partners. Head Start, we utilize NetTrans often. Like I said, transportation is a difficult resource for a lot of our clients. And so being able to provide transportation for them to come to appointments, for them to do an intake, things like that. Why do we have family justice centers? Well, nationwide, they've been proven to reduce homicides, to increase victim safety, to reduce recantation and minimization, increase prosecution of offenders, and then dramatically increase community support for victim services. You know, a lot of issues, if we're not talking about them, they're not going on, right? And so places like family justice centers help with awareness. They have awareness campaigns. We're out in the community, letting people know of services and that these are needed services because this stuff is unfortunately happening. Like I said, at Branch House, we have 3 on-site partners, and then we have over 40 local and national partners, including organizations like yours. We partner a lot with our local law enforcement, so Bristol, Sullivan County, Kingsport, and they're actually our greatest source of referrals. So they're responding to these domestic calls and able to refer people to us directly or send us police reports. So we're able to follow up on our end and say, hey, we noticed law enforcement was at your home the other night for this incident. Are there any resources that we might be able to help you all with? So what services do we have specifically? This is just a very broad overview of the things we offer. Safety planning, we have individualized safety planning for all the individuals that come and seek our services. We're able to go through based on their needs, their situation, where they're employed, what they might be needing, whether that's an order of protection, emergency shelter, and really tailor it to that specific individual and their needs. Transitional housing is something that one of our partner agencies offers through their shelter. So once they're in the shelter, that's typically about a 30-day stay, and then helping them connect to resources beyond that. So paying security deposits, paying first month's rents, things like that to help that person start in that apartment. Counseling therapy is probably our most utilized services. So all of our services in-house are completely free grant-funded services. We don't bill insurance or anything like that. So anybody that comes here, I always encourage them, if they're on the fence with services, go ahead and sign up and they can opt out at any point in time. Legal Aid is another large service provider that we have. A lot of people are requesting that attorney for that civil legal proceeding of an order of protection. Orders of protection are a service that we offer quite a bit. Safe at Home, I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with that. It's an address confidentiality program through the state of Tennessee. So if somebody has an ongoing criminal case, valid order of protection, or a letter from a licensed professional, they're able to sign up for a 4-year program that their address would not be public record. And so they're given a little card that they have. If they were to be pulled over, have any court appearances, anything like that, that shows that they're a member of this program and that's why their address is some Nashville address. Ring doorbell cameras is something that we're able to give individuals. Advocacy, forensic exams, I'll talk a little bit more at the end. But we also have a sexual assault program, so people are able to bypass the emergency department and receive that exam at either our location or one of our satellite locations. But I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. So this is kind of an overview of the individuals that we've served. So in total, for domestic violence, we've had 1,300 individuals present with a domestic violence victimization. That's since we've been open in 2018. Last year in 2025, we had 160 individuals. As you can see, the breakdown on the graph is overall counseling referrals, and then for 2025 specifically, advocacy is our most utilized service. That's individuals that will go to court with you, help you navigate the criminal justice process or civil justice process. We don't expect our clients to come in here being the expert on that because nobody expects to ever have to navigate this. And so that's what we're there for, is to help them navigate the criminal justice process, the civil justice process, reach out to law enforcement on their behalf, work as a liaison between them and the court system, or connect to resources that they may need during this situation. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is domestic violence. So I like to refer to domestic violence as the umbrella term that domestic abuse, intimate partner violence, things like that fall underneath. Domestic violence is violence in the home. So it can be husband, wife, partners, spouses, boyfriend, girlfriend, mother, son, anything like that. Intimate partner violence is that specific intimate relationship. So partners, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, spouses, things like that. There's a lot of things that are included within domestic violence. I know a lot of people, when I give these trainings, I'll ask, what do you think of when you think domestic violence? And they're like, oh, it's usually the physical violence. And that's just kind of a piece of that puzzle. It's just a fraction of what can be described as domestic violence. And often incidents are rarely isolated, and they usually escalate in frequency and severity over time. And it's also important to note that domestic violence doesn't discriminate. It can happen to anybody regardless of race, religion, creed, national origin, anything like that. I know sometimes people think that it's based on socioeconomic status or race or something like that, but that is not the case. Domestic violence can happen to anybody. So these are some forms of intimate partner violence: physical violence, emotional violence. Sexual violence is one that a lot of our clients don't consider. They'll come in and we'll start talking. And prior to this role, I was a sexual assault advocate. And, I had individuals say, oh, well, consent's not an issue. We're married. Consent's not an issue. We've been dating. And so sometimes it's a little bit of psychoeducation on our end to let that client know, consent has to be given every single time. And it can be taken away at any point during that encounter. Economic abuse is one that we see a lot within intimate partner violence. Maybe spouse is the breadwinner. You don't have resources to leave. You don't have resources to maintain yourself once you do leave, or your children. Spouse threatens to get an attorney for custody of the children, and you don't have the resources to be able to fight that. Stalking, you see this a lot during the course of leaving. So that's just that repeated following or harassment. Maybe the individual has left and their phone's blowing up all the time, perpetrators showing up at work, things like that. This, I think, is a really good example of kind of the cycle of domestic violence. So when I train, I always like to tell people, think about going on a first date, right? You're going on a first date, and 9 times out of 10, that person's kind of putting their best foot forward, right? They're hoping to get a second date. You're going to a semi-decent restaurant, holding the door. I did have an officer tell me one time, he was like, no, we're going through the Burger King drive-thru, and that's a first date. I'm like, well, set the bar low and work up, I guess. But that's the same with domestic violence, right? So you enter into this relationship and it's great. The person's really nice, they're holding the door, things like that. And that's kind of that honeymoon phase that we see. Well, suddenly the tension begins to build. Maybe the perpetrator's moody, they're nitpicking, they're withdrawing their affection a little bit. The victim's doing whatever they can to maintain that balance. And then there's an acute explosion. So perpetrator, it might be a violent incident, law enforcement may be called to the home, property may be destroyed, children may be threatened, whatever that might look like. And and the victim's just trying to stay safe in that moment, whether that is going to a shelter, calling law enforcement, staying in the home, fleeing to a friend's house. And then we go back into the honeymoon phase. The perpetrator promises to get counseling, they apologize, say they won't do it again until the tension begins to build again. And this is the cycle that we see a lot, which is why on average it takes victims 7 times to leave a domestic violence situation before they leave and they don't return. But it's because of this cycle over and over again, right? And they're built on that relationship. Victim knows that that person can be a good guy. They did it. They saw him do it. That's what got them to enter into this relationship. And so it just kind of goes on and on until eventually they're able to leave and not return. When we look at domestic violence specifically in Tennessee, TBI is a little behind on data, so 2024 is the most recent that we have access to, at least at this time. There were over 60,000 incidents of domestic violence reported to law enforcement. That's just the ones that are reported. I can say probably 50% of the people who come into here, that might be a little over exaggeration, but I would say a lot of people that come in here have never involved law enforcement. So these are just the ones that are being reported. 82 individuals were the victim of a domestic violence homicide. Your highest age group is between 25 and 34. Almost 10,000 were aggravated assaults, with the most reported weapon being a personal weapon. So that's hands, feet, teeth, things like that. Something that everybody has access to. It wasn't a deadly weapon, it wasn't a knife, it wasn't a firearm, it was their own person. So that leads us to the lethality assessment program. This is something that we train local law enforcement on, and they implement when they respond to those intimate partner domestics. So what's the reason behind the lethality assessment? It's the process of identifying victims of domestic violence who are in the most danger of being killed. This was based off of a model in Maryland. It's called the LAP assessment. And it identifies victims of domestic violence who are at the greatest risk of being killed and encourages them to utilize services. So it's like 11 questions that if they screen in, it automatically hyperlinks officers to the hotline. So whether that is in Bristol, which is Abuse Alternatives, or Kingsport, which is Frontier Health Safe House, and they're able to call on site to speak with a domestic violence advocate if the victim so chooses. What's the goal of this? Early intervention, connecting people to resources sooner, which increases victim safety, coordinates that response between law enforcement and local victim services providers, and then prevents repeat incidents and hopefully saves a life. This is a little bit of what it looks like the officers fill out. This is a video, we won't go through it. But it's really easy. It's a Google form or a Microsoft form that they're able to fill out. And like I said, if they screen in, it automatically sends hyperlinks to call. Forensic photography is a service that Branch House is able to offer for victims of domestic violence during our business hours. The photography is done by one of our on-site sexual assault nurse examiners. We have 2 here part-time and 1 here full-time. Consent's given at the time of photography, so we don't have to worry about subpoenas or releases for information on the back end. And then it's just very thorough photography should that case ever go to court and that be needed. Talking a little bit about order of protection. Like I said, we fill these out quite a bit. An adult petitioner can file, so a victim over the age of 18, a child's parent or legal guardian, a caseworker or law enforcement officer can fill those out. The relationship criteria for an order of protection is a domestic or intimate relationship. The only 2 factors outside of that is if there was a sexual assault that occurred or stalking harassment. We get this a lot where individuals want to come and kind of use order of protection and restraining order interchangeably. A restraining order can be filed on anybody's behalf. Like, you don't have to have that relationship. That's what makes it a little bit different than an order of protection. Recently, legislation that we've had in the state of Tennessee, the most recent being Savannah's law. So if you all are familiar with the sexual offender registry, it's like that, but for domestic violence. So after the second conviction of a domestic violence charge, an individual will go on the registry. It will include their name, date of birth, the conviction date, the county or counties that they were convicted in, and then a current photo of that offender. Sexual assault, this is another service that, or another victimization that we see quite often. What is sexual assault? It's a non-consensual sexual act that is prescribed by that state or law that the individual lives in. So where we're in Blountville, we see a lot of individuals from Virginia, and their laws are just slightly different than ours. So it kind of depends on the state that the individual or that the incident occurred in. Victims' rights, like I said, prior to this job, I was a sexual assault advocate. And so this was something that I reviewed a lot with the individuals that I worked with. Victims have the right to have an advocate at any stage of their proceedings or a support person of their choosing. That might be best friend, parent, spouse, anything like that. They have the right to request to be interviewed by the law enforcement officer of their gender. Statistically, a lot of sexual assault victims are female. A lot of officers and detectives are male. They may not be comfortable with that, so they have the right to request an interview by a female officer if one's available, if it's possible. We have Sam's Track in the state of Tennessee. It's our sexual assault kit tracking. When I started as an advocate, we didn't have that. And so victims would call us, ask the status of their case. We would call the detective. The detective would call the lab. The lab would then call the detective back. The detective would then call us. We would then call the victim. It did not go quite as smooth as that. Nobody answers their phone the first time, and victims change their phone numbers a lot. So sometimes it would be difficult to be able to track all of the people in that. But now once a kit is processed, they're given a QR code that they're able to scan and an individualized kit tracking number that they can go onto and look and see where their kit is in the processing, in the testing stages.
Hey, Kristen.
Yeah.
Yeah, can I ask a question real quickly on this slide?
Absolutely.
Okay, so over on the right, where it says it's against the law in Tennessee, that second bullet point, for a victim to be asked to submit to a polygraph. So that's interesting to me, because I would think that they would want a victim to kind of go through that to make sure that everything happened, the way that they're not lying,
Yeah.
about how they got whatever is on their body. But it's against the law to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It is.
Okay.
It is. Yeah, that's one. Sometimes I'll have individuals, a lot of times when we think of sexual assault or we think of sexual assault cases, we think of Law and Order SVU. I love SVU, but I've had individuals who say, okay, so do I have to, am I going to get hooked up to a machine now, or are they going to, I'm like, no, they actually are not able to do that. Another big one on that kind of right side of the screen is any DNA or toxicology that's from that exam can't be used to prosecute them for a misdemeanor drug offense or anything like that. So if we have an individual who comes in and they, state that they have voluntarily ingested some sort of illegal substance, they tell us that, so we'll know it's supposed to be there. Now, if they come in and they're like, I didn't take anything, and then all of a sudden meth pops up in their drug screen, well, that's a cause for concern. But if they want a toxicology screen and they said, yeah, I smoked some weed, I did some meth, whatever that might look like, that then can't be used to prosecute them on any drug charges or unrelated charges from that sexual assault. The other big thing with sexual assault legislation is you can have a hold kit for up to 10 years. In the state of Tennessee, it's 10 years. In Virginia, I believe it's 2. So that's kind of another example of, like I said, it just varies state by state. And we see Virginia quite a bit where we're so close. You have the right to be informed of the disposal of that kit and request a 12-month extension. But I usually tell individuals if after 10 years they're not pursuing it, they're probably not going to request that 12-month extension. And a lot of times when I've had individuals who've requested that hold kit, they've followed through within a few days. Sometimes you just need a couple of minutes. So this talks a little bit more about the hold kit. It's still given to law enforcement. It's kept in their evidence locker. It's just not submitted to the lab for testing, and there's no identifying information on it. So it's given to that law enforcement agency anonymously. Why do we have the hold kit law? Well, a lot of people aren't sure if they want to pursue the criminal justice system, if they want to pursue prosecution. Prosecution's really hard. It takes a lot out of a victim. It goes on for a long time, and that's something that they might need a minute to think about. The reason we have this is so they can still have those services like advocacy, like therapy, like STI prophylactics, without having to worry that they'll automatically have to report to law enforcement. You see a lot of reasons why people may not report. There's a lot of stigma around sexual assault, around domestic violence. They may not want their friends or family to find out. They may have concerns about confidentiality. They may not feel like it was kind of that typical Hollywood TV sexual assault. And so they fear that they may not be believed because of that. These are just some more misconceptions with sexual assault. A big one is that there are always injuries. According to the Department of Justice, about 17% of victims have some sort of visible injury. And then that most are committed by strangers is one we hear a lot. 8 out of 10 are committed by somebody that the victim knows. I think we hear a lot of times too, that they don't act like they were traumatized, or that's not how I would behave in that situation. There's a lot of reasons for trauma responses. I've had individuals who have cried the whole time I've talked to them, have laughed the whole time, have not had any kind of affect at all. I always like to tell people normal is a setting on a washing machine and nothing more. So there's not an appropriate or right reaction to trauma. It's however your brain is able to help get you through that process and kind of to the next step. So looking at sexual assault services for Branch House specifically, the following are the things that we do here by one of our sexual assault nurse examiners. So trauma identification, strangulation assessment, head to toe assessment. So when an individual comes in, they'll do probably an hour and a half or so of paperwork. It's really, really thorough, specific to their overall medical history and then specific to the sexual assault. Then they'll go back to an exam room, put on a gown, have a head to toe exam, collect swabs from any area that there may potentially be DNA, and then they can do forensic photography. Same with the forensic photography I mentioned earlier. Consent's given at the time, so there's no need for a subpoena on the back end or release of information or anything like that. Evidence collection given to law enforcement. We are able to take blood and urine for drug toxicology, and then also offer STI prophylaxis. We now are able to offer NPEP, or like the post-exposure for HIV, through the health department, and also offer STI testing through our partnership with the health department. Criteria for Branch House in Sullivan County is ages 13 and older. So this includes individuals on the Virginia side. If they're coming to Branch House, ages 13 and older, no acute injuries. So nothing that's going to require, x-rays, CTs, anything like that. Not currently intoxicated, and that assault occurring within the past 7 days. We'll skip that one. So these are pictures of our sexual assault exam rooms. The top one is at Branch House, which is in Blountville. And then the bottom one is our forensic exam in Johnson City. In Johnson City, it's for individuals 18 and older, but here where it's 13 and up. We also have the ability to respond to emergency departments once that patient has been discharged. We have a mobile cart, and then we also have a clinic at Holston Valley. That way people are able to bypass the emergency department and receive that sexual assault exam and those services without having to go through triage and things like that. But that's all I have.
So that's great, and thank you. So does anybody have questions for Kristen?
Hi, Kristen. This is Jan.
Hi.
Wonderful presentation. You did a
Thank
great
you.
job. So I did have a question with your services. Are those available to Bristol, Virginia city residents? I did hear you mention that toward the end, bringing in victims, but are the list of services that you provide, are Bristol, Virginia residents eligible?
So I'll be honest, it gets a little dicey with that, a little difficult. We're never going to turn anybody away from services. We'll serve victims that come from Greene County, Johnson County. With Bristol, Virginia residents, it gets a little difficult into what services we're able to offer. So we wouldn't be able to assist with an order of protection, mainly because we primarily do Tennessee ones, and I'll be honest, the Virginia one looks vastly different.
Yeah.
But we do have partner agencies like Abuse Alternatives that we can refer to, shelters still available, counseling services, sexual assault forensic exams still are available. Um, so my answer is yes, with the caveat that the services may change or look a little bit different.
I understand. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
that's awesome to know. And it sounds like we know that Branch House is a good place for people to start. So even that's great to know for our Virginia sister city and sister citizens that they can get that start there too. And maybe that's not where they end up with everything, but that's awesome. So, um, okay, others? So y'all call yourselves your group. Can you talk about what your CCR is?
Yeah, of course. So we have a couple of multidisciplinary teams at Branch House. I am in charge, or I'm coordinating our CCR, our Coordinated Community Response Team, as well as our DART team, which is a domestic abuse response team. So DART is for any high risk domestic violence cases that we've seen over the past month or so. It involves law enforcement from Sullivan County, Kingsport, and Bristol, and then service providers, advocates, legal aid, and then branch house staff. So that one's a kind of more specific group. Our CCR group is a little bit broader. It is for community partners, anybody that works in the area of social services. And it's just a way that we're able to come together, connect, discuss gaps in services that we may have, discuss updated services or offering new services that we have. Um, and really just kind of go over what's new in our world of victim services and what's going on with those agencies that we partner with, like law enforcement and the 40 other national and local individuals that we have.
So can you share how often do y'all meet? When do you meet? Do you meet in person, online?
We meet quarterly, and we do hybrid meetings. There might be some discussion about moving specifically to in person, but right now it's still hybrid. So we offer both in person and over Zoom. I think our next meeting is set for August, and we meet the fourth Thursday of the month at 10 a.m. But if anybody's interested in joining our CCR, I can put my email in the chat and y'all can email me, and I'd love to add you to our CCR meetings.
I think you need to put your email in the chat regardless so that
I
we have
will.
your contact information. And I always intend to send the chat. And I apologize, I'm behind. I had everything ready on our last program and lost that email for the time being. Anyway, I will get that one back out as well as this one. So can you give just a little bit of history? Because I think the history is pretty interesting for, sometimes being a Tennessee resident, sometimes, well, being a sister city, we see Virginia ahead sometimes and Tennessee ahead sometimes, and depends on what the issue is. And of course, paradigms can shift, that one of them can be appear to be pretty far behind in dealing with something, and then something changes and jumps ahead. But can you just talk a minute about that?
Yeah, so Branch House opened our doors in 2018, in May. So we actually just celebrated our anniversary birthday last month. Um, we were opened because Governor Haslam at the time had research and data that showed that Sullivan County was one of the most service-rich areas with also the highest incidence of domestic violence and sexual assault. And so family justice centers starting in San Diego in like the late 80s, early 90s, and then slowly migrating east. We already had one in Johnson City, but it became okay, we have the services, we have these issues. How do we bridge that gap? And the Family Justice Center was the solution for that, for being able to offer those services all in one place and hopefully make it to where they were more accessible for individuals to be able to seek.
Okay. And yeah, I think they were created across the state, different places gradually. Didn't I think that ours is maybe a little differently funded than some of the other ones as well for
We're one of the few nonprofit family justice centers in the state. A lot of them are connected to local municipalities, law enforcement agencies, things like that. So we're a nonprofit, and we're also the only family justice center that has its own sexual assault program. Other cities have rape crisis centers and things like that. But we are one of the very, very few in the country that have um, our own sexual assault response program. And I think once we started the NPEP program, so being able to offer that HIV prophylactic medication, I think we might be the trailblazer leading that charge as well.
Thank you. We're always happy to hear that we're doing well in this part of the state. And of course, we know, and I think Bristol, Virginia is similar too, that sometimes the data being higher means that the communication is better. And also that would make sense even with the services. If there's a lot of services, then there's ability for people to address problems, so that it's not necessarily that you have a worse problem. It may be that you're better with communication and reaching out for people to report. So anyway, other questions or comments? Go ahead, Tony. But you're on mute. You're on mute. You're on mute. Tony, you're on mute.
I thought this was a fascinating and very enlightening presentation. I just couldn't get enough of it. And it made me think about some of the historical sides of this first, that we had, because of saying nurses, that some of the folks from the ETSU College of Nursing were very keen, especially in that environment, in doing something that really probably didn't penetrate far enough outside of Johnson City. But that's okay, because we're all learning. And so I think that there has to be sharing. And the sharing is what is leading to questions like what Eric had. Because what I'm thinking about is, we have these this is part two. We have these prescriptions against findings being used against the victim. What if there is a child involved, and some of that data would be like red flag, we've got to do something with Child Protective Services? Does that then bring back, hey, we gotta think? It's the law, but the law is not perfect. Just address the child thing.
Yeah, so that's another recent legislation that we've had come up where we're mandatory reporters in the state of Tennessee, and everybody that works here above. One of the things that has been updated for mandatory reporting is children who have witnessed domestic violence or child abuse in the home. So that has increased the reports that we're making quite frequently. Thankfully, we have a fantastic relationship with our DCS in this area. But anytime we meet or interact with a client, the first thing we're going to tell them is our confidentiality and our limitations to confidentiality. And so if there were concerns for child abuse, if there was unrelated drug activity in the home, it may be a matter of law enforcement is not able to will not be pursuing anything on this, but based on what you've disclosed to us, we will have to make a report to Child Protective Services.
I like that answer. Thank you. Thank
you. Okay. Anybody else? So it's great to understand the resources that we have better, and I certainly do. And I do several different roles, but Family Promise at Bristol is one of those, and we do homelessness with a day center inside upstairs at Salvation Army, and we have domestic abuse cases that come in, and some of them choose not to seek help at abuse alternatives or whatever. But I think we've made referrals different times to Branch House as well. So that's very helpful to know what the parameters are, et cetera. So excellent. Do you have any questions for us, Kristen, for anybody here? And actually, we can go ahead and then we'll introduce ourselves.
I was going to say, I think that might be what my questions are is where's everybody
Right.
with, but
Right.
no, ma'am, that's the only
Yeah.
question I think I have.
Yep, and I didn't fully introduce myself that I represent both Family Promise at Bristol and Appalachian Promise Alliance. And Family Promise is homelessness and serving and trying to reach resources, et cetera, to stabilize, to help people stabilize their lives. And then Appalachian Promise is more to do with building assets with children and family, youth and families. So a little bit different perspective, but arriving at the same place with better lives for people. So if people can introduce themselves, that'd be great. And Tony, you started, so if you can just introduce yourself, who are you?
Am I such a troublemaker?
I would agree.
I am that. I introduced myself as a good troublemaker. I've been here since 1977 with the College of Medicine. I'm one of the founding faculty, and I came in the Department of Surgery. No, 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 no. I'm not a surgeon. I have a more interest in things like the social determinants of health, how to make a regionally economically strong, and it's just taken me a while to be able to find funding opportunities for these kinds of activities. And that's what I'm working on now. Working on the creative arts. I'm working on the blue zones, which are places where people live to be 90s, whatever, and what makes them special. And I'm trying to come up with, well, I'm old. I'm gonna tell you, I like to look at numbers, so metrics, like things that have to do with population growth, things that have to do with education, things that have to do with diversity. Well, those are really important when you're looking at our metros, and there are two of them here versus other metros. The other thing is, since Helene, we want to add resilience into this. And so I'm proposing and I'm working on something that I can map like crazy and show people here, 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 here. And it is a change of typology from the Brookings Institution, which is a left-leaning think tank from their state of metropolitan America, to the Tony typology.
Okay. Thank you, Tony. Ellen.
Oh, hey, I'm Ellen Tolton. I am the current community development specialist for the city of Bristol, Virginia. Next Tuesday is my last day. And I don't know if Margaret mentioned, but she initiated this coordinated response meeting during COVID as a way to pool and find out what the resources in the area were. And it was just critical at that time. And the resources and the folks that came together for that purpose. It's just a very awesome group that gets together and still gets together. So anyway, I want to thank Margaret for that. She did, initiate it, and I've been with this group I've been with the city for 9 years, and happy to be retiring. And I appreciate all the services and things that everybody has done, both on this call and in both Bristol, Tennessee, and Virginia. And yeah, I'm happy to have Jan here with me, and I think she's going to be a wonderful fit. And I hope she will enjoy this new position.
So with that, and Ellen, yes, we started during COVID. I frequently start with that, and I didn't today. At that time, we both met weekly. I mean, y'all were all probably there, and it was crazy. We didn't know week to week what was happening and who had resources and who didn't. We had 40 to 60 people on Zoom at that time, and it was Melissa Roberts with Appalachian Promise and myself that started doing it during that time. We started within the second week of the lockdown, so pretty cool. So, Jan, tell us a little bit about yourself and your expectations, and we'll hope to see you regularly.
Okay. Thank you. Well, I'm certainly happy to be a part of this group and just, and all the coordinated services that we see between our two cities, Bristol, but also just serving the greater community. I've been in my life, most of my life in Bristol, Virginia. And so I'm definitely interested in it and just diving into this position, seeing where, not only just the responsibilities of the position, but where else can I maybe get involved. And there's a lot of great things that I heard here today. My background's been 20 plus years in higher education. A lot of that's been in grant compliance and administration. So, and I've been involved in a lot of Bristol different clubs and groups and stuff. So, really happy to be in this position where I can make more of a coordinated effort and work with all you all. So, I'll put my email in the chat. And if there's any questions or anything that you feel that I could be, part of that can help, be a part of these services and help spread the word, I'd love to.
That sounds great. Thank you, Jan, and welcome. And we appreciate you filling in and taking the ball and running with it. And we want to be part of your team too. So, Travis, do you have the ability to talk with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I just been over here observing. Hi, everybody. My name is Travis Boer. I'm an outreach worker with Oxford House in Tennessee, and we provide sober living homes to anybody in recovery from substance use disorders. We house men, women with their children up to an age limit, as well as men with their children. It's a program that helped save my life, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
And we thank you very much. And we've had Oxford House on here before talking, so we appreciate. So anybody can go back and look at that video that's on our channel, YouTube channel, and we appreciate it. We know we need housing. We know we need recovery services. So we appreciate what you do and how that contributes to our community. So, yeah, go ahead.
I was saying, yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Kristen, for your presentation. You did wonderful with that.
Great. Natalie.
Hey, I am with Frontier Health. I'm their Safe Place coordinator. Safe Place is a program for runaway and homeless youth. We can provide up to 21 days of emergency housing. We do case management, counseling, permanency planning, family therapy, all kinds of stuff like that to try and help teens get back into a safe and stable home. And I say teens because that's most of who we work with, but we can also serve younger kids, families who are potentially at risk of losing custody of their children. We can take their kids for up to 21 days in our program, which is non-custodial, meaning parents still have parental rights and everything, and it can be kind of like an intercept preventative program to help parents who might be at risk of losing their kids have a little time to get things stabilized, get some in-home services going, and then they can get their kids back from us and help avoid that situation.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure that can be very helpful to not have to go through a process of not having your kids for a shorter period of time than losing them for a longer period with more hoops to jump through to get them back. And we do know from different people, we know our experience that that happens sometimes, that people struggle. And I just wish we gave more attention to helping parents keep their children. I think the data probably,
Absolutely.
yeah, so the data still show that the children thrive better with their, even if it's a bad, not the best situation, thrive with their birth parents.
Yeah.
That's still the data that comes through.
And we actually pretty recently served a kid through Safe Place whose mom was trying to leave a domestic violence situation and was scared about having her child taken in the process. And we were able to house that kid for a couple of weeks while mom secured somewhere to live. And then kid was able to reunite with mom in their own place.
Fabulous. Yeah, it's great to know how many resources we have and what there are. And sometimes we think we know a lot of resources, and then we find out something else that we didn't realize or didn't know that's pretty awesome. So, and Jan, I hope that any help you need, that you can reach out first to Ellen, but also to any of the rest of us to find out what services might be out there that you aren't aware of yet. So anyway, so I wanted to share my screen for just, well, I won't bother sharing. Last time we had Founders Forge, and David Nelson talked about the Vante Small Business Boot Camp and the work that they've had done with people in recovery with entrepreneurship. That is already on our YouTube, but you haven't gotten an email, I don't think yet, letting you know that. But this time they have one starting for helping parents in recovery or reentry go from idea to launch. You talked about it being entrepreneurship may be appears that it can be a really great place for a great way for people who are in recovery to be their own boss, right? And control things as opposed to having to deal with stigma and everything else that can happen in the workplace. So that's what they're doing some concentrating on. I will be sending this out, and it starts at the end of August. So, and it's a 6 week. And the one that they did already, they had six people complete the course, and 5 did a pitch at the end. So they considered that pretty successful for what they do. So we'll see what happens with that and want to support that program. So, and Travis, if you haven't watched that one, you might want to watch it for helping some of your folks who may have that entrepreneurial bug that could be successful. So with that, at this point, I'm not announcing anything for July. The name of the YouTube channel is Family Promise of Bristol. Thank you for asking, YouTube channel. So, and again, I'll send that out with a link, hopefully by early next week at the most, and get that to y'all to be able to click on it and you're there and see what all we have to that could help and might help you, Jan, to orient, and you can skim through some of it, but it can help you put faces with people and stuff like that too. So, all right. Well, thank you very much. And thanks for putting your contact information. And again, I'll try to share that. So thank you very much, Kristen. Thank you very much. Your feedback is that you did a great job and very good to learn some new things that we already knew. Branch House was awesome, but now I'm realizing it's even awesomer than what I realized it was. So
Thank you. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to get to come talk about Branch House.
yes, thank you very much, and we wish everybody the best with moving from into a new directorship,
Thank you.
so that things will go forward. So anyway, thank you very much, and we'll see y'all soon.
Thank you.